As a video journalist and filmmaker and virtual reality video journalist, I'm traveling all over the world, and I worked a lot of times in Africa, and it's always the same story. They always ask me, why do foreigners have to tell us our story? Why can we not tell our stories? So I'm very happy that you come and you will tell your story, and I would like that you introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Hadir Omar, and I'm Egyptian. I lived half of my life in Egypt and half of it now in Qatar, which is also in the Middle East. I'm an assistant professor at a university, American university. It's called Virginia Commonwealth University. I'm a visual artist, which made me more an interdisciplinary person. I get bored easily, so I tend to move around with the mediums. I have a lot of curiosity in life, which made me not just use art and design in a way of just finding stories or making artwork. I'm interested in just finding myself within the process. I'm interested in processes more than the outcomes. So all my work kind of tend to do that. So that's a very short bio.
Hello everyone. My name is Wendy Ndaki. I'm from Kenya, and my background is in technology. I did information systems technology in campus, but I'm also a visual artist. So I'm passionate about the fusion of technology and art, and that is how I ended up joining Enter Africa, which combines the two, art and technology, science and art, and creates games and gamification solutions in different countries in Africa. So yeah, that's a short bio, and I believe we'll introduce more things as we proceed. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dagmo Ibatilu. I'm an Ethiopian, born, raised, and still living there. My background, I studied electrical engineering, and I specialized in software engineering. I've been doing software for the past 10 years. Currently, I'm a game designer, and I'm a project manager for Enter Africa, which is a Pan-African initiative that connects 15 African countries. And you were saying it earlier on, we are trying to show the world the Africa we know and we lived in. So that's what we do.
So, of course, I'm very focused on journalism, and I saw in all of your work journalistic elements. Journalism is like 2,000 years old, and before it was it was just produced for the elite, because most of the people could not read and write. And then we had Gutenberg, and we had the invention of radio and television and the internet, and that changed everything. And I'm just wondering, because we in Germany, I mean, we do have a little problem with Africa. A lot of media still use it as a country, and is not aware that there are 55 countries, and that there is so much going on, and it's not always a poor little child with a fly on the nose. But for example, then when you go to Nairobi or in Lagos, they live in a very, very fast pace. So I would like to ask you if you see your work journalistic? Journalistic? I think you're the one.
Yeah.
Yes, actually I am a writer, so I own a blog where I write about art events, and I report about tech as well. So there's a journalistic aspect to what I do as a writer. And also in Project Enter Africa, we're trying to tell stories, African stories, in a different way through games, and in a way that engages the people that are playing the games. So yes, there's definitely a bit of journalism in what we're doing.
How can I interpret your work?
Well, I'm an artist, so for me everything is super visual. So I use photography, I use filmmaking, I use even whatever tools I can put my hands on, even my social media account, I can share it in a bit. But basically, I look at the kind of like observing life around me, and I try to seek things that usually people ignore every day, and I highlight it either with a story on my Instagram, or is it in a short film, or in some sort of an experience, or I highlight it in a way. But I feel that I have the responsibility, once I know something, I have to share it, or I can't just leave it to myself. And it's not in a way that it's like I have to just be talking all the time or just showing whatever is happening, negative or positive, but it's a perspective. You know, it's like this is how I saw it, how I witnessed it, and I know for sure that I'm bridging a lot of people with a lot of places, even with the same country. Like in Egypt, not everyone knows what's happening in the same place. So when you share a picture, you share an event, or you share some sort of a moment, it brings an awareness, even if it's not going to be there and they think about it straight away, but it's back in their mind, they know that it exists. And if they faced it later, it will still, I know that there's an impact that happened, even if it's really tiny. And I feel, I don't know what you want to call it journalism, if you want to call it whatever, I just do it, you know? And just because I know that my responsibility as an artist, that I have to react to things. I can't just make pretty stuff, you know? So.
But art and journalism is always very, very interrelated with governmental institutions. It depends if you have freedom of press. So maybe all of you could give us a short background about your country and how's the press situation on the ground.
It's like anywhere, like you have the pros and, you know, it's like the antis, so it's like, I feel like I'm in the middle, that I have to create my own platform.
But can you talk freely? Can you say whatever you want, or are there some restrictions from the government?
It's like everywhere still. Like, you know, I feel that it's there are now, with the current situation that's happening in Egypt, for example, I'm seeing that yes, there is a lot of restrictions, but the Egyptians that they're receiving the information are trying to find alternatives, and either using social media to talk, or finding other ways, like using humor, or like creating their own memes to make fun of it, instead of like in a direct way kind of attack the government, because a lot of people now in prison, or it's harder than even when the revolution was happening, for sure.
So do you think art is also a way of showing criticism?
For sure, it's an indirect way and direct way. Like we use metaphors, we use a lot of other ways to tell stories, and if you want to talk about one story or one person, it's different than adding numbers on screen, you know, or like talking about like, oh, 100 people died. I don't relate to any one of them. But when you talk about one story of this person, you start connecting, you start emphasizing, you know.
So we had this, the European history, they used fables to criticize the king. So you never said it's a king, it's a lion who did this and this, and everybody knew who the person referred to. So do you think the art scene in Egypt is flourishing after this new repression?
For sure, after the revolution, it was before the revolution, they were using it against the government. But in the revolution, it showed us how much art, design, whatever, any art expression, it's very important as a tool to talk about your problems. And if it's indirect or direct way, and we start crafting ways to do it throughout the years. It's been 9 years or more, and I'm seeing it the way like, okay, this didn't work during the revolution, let's start something else. Okay, didn't work maybe on TV, let's start making campaigns on the road and interacting with people. If the low vernacular don't understand this, okay, let's try this way. You know, it's like they start playing with finding ways, and definitely now you see more photographers, more storytellers on the road, and because they understand now the importance of it. Because during the revolution it started booming, but now it's more, but the government trying to control it even more.
So this was also my experience. I lived in Egypt for 1 year, and I was not into the scene, but I came back during the revolution, and suddenly I saw all these graffitis all over, And now, maybe it's very selective, but I see everywhere graffitis and very political graffitis and very artistic graffitis. Is this true, or is it just my impression?
It's there since the revolution. But I'm saying, like, the government now is more aware of the situation. And people on the road, but they think that it's not the best way to tell what you want or, like, to make people listen to you. They can't control social media that much, so people still are using social media and they're still sharing videos, they're making more stories. If it's not shown in Egypt, they show it outside. They find other ways. I remember in Egypt, during the revolution, they had projectors on the road in the middle of the squares, and they'll start showing, if the government is saying something, on the same day we're showing something completely the opposite, which just says, like, okay, yeah, stop the bullshit. You know, it's like that was happening. So I like that, you know, it's like, it's just super cheap, nothing. You just need a projector and a screen, or even no screen. But it's just, there's another way of, like, reacting to things. You don't want fancy platforms or whatever. They're just trying with whatever tools they have to tell these kind of stories.
That's very interesting. How is the situation in Kenya?
So in Kenya, the freedom of expression is slowly getting better. Although there's still some issues, such as, for instance, politicians owning news stations. So in a way, it also changes the way the stories are told. There's a bias, and so you don't get the exact truth. So that's a challenge we're going through. But in general, I feel like the freedom of expression, even with the current government, is better than, for instance, a couple of decades, I think a decade ago, when there was a different ruler for a very long period of time and people used to get arrested. The lady who won the Nobel Peace Prize, Wangari Maathai, was really harassed by that government, but nowadays activism is easier. I recently attended an event at the Goethe Institute in Nairobi where an animator was talking about how she is using animation for activism. She had just created an animation about child trafficking. So yes, I believe that with time, freedom of expression is getting easier in Nairobi and Kenya in general.
Is there a taboo? You cannot criticize your president, or is there a total no-go, or is it just like a gray zone?
Actually, nowadays, our president is very easy. There's a station that gives a puppet show for politicians, and the president is, although they use metaphors, they don't use exact same words, but they make fun of politicians, but then they're also addressing issues that need to be considered by the society. So the president is okay with this, so I believe that this is good transformation, because now some issues will be able to be addressed as we proceed.